Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to a little special Christmas break edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. As with most of us, we're taking a few days to enjoy the holidays with friends and family. But we know you all need a timeout at some point, so we've got some of our favorite content over the past years for your viewing pleasure. Let me welcome in my partner in crime here, Michael Remis. Remo, best of the season to you.
Yeah, best of the season to you as well. It's a great time of year. NFL winding down, World Juniors around the corner, and well, the NHL takes a bit of a break, but we've gone over a third of the season, and the playoff picture is starting to become more clear, and the rumor mill heating up a bit as we get closer to the trade deadline. But I guess first we have the Olympics, and we'll hear those teams soon.
Listen, this is a joyous time of year. Let's not talk about the current season right now or anything. I think everyone, team, fans alike, just needs a few days, needs a little bit of a break. We'll be back at it. The Wild are in town on Saturday night, the 27th, to take on the Winnipeg Jets. And then the Jets have a game against the Oilers on Monday again. Of course, we'll be back live with our regularly scheduled programming on that day. But this was a fun chance to just kind of go back through the archives and put together a bit of a compilation of some of our favorite interviews over the course of the last year or so. And obviously, with the amount of Jet content we do on the program, no surprise that two Jet legends both made the cut. Starting off with Bryan Little, and a little later on, former Winnipeg Jet captain Blake Wheeler, who joined the program, and I guess after their retirements were made official.
Yeah, and this is something that we've never done on this YouTube channel, but I've done previously at the old station. We do so much content every day, and sometimes it gets lost, or people find out later, hey, you did this. And all this content, not really time sensitive, and it was great when you caught up with Bryan Little in October 2024 about, his one-day contract with the Jets retiring. And that was a nice conversation looking back on his career, the move to Winnipeg, and former captain Blake Wheeler, who was his line mate, announced his official retirement this past summer. And you caught up with him for a great conversation about his career and his time with the Winnipeg Jets as well. So, yeah, those are the two Winnipeg Jets in this special.
2/3 of the Little Lad Wheeler line represented in the compilation. But speaking of former players, one that I know was right at the top of your list for ones that we've done, maybe in the near 5 years of Winnipeg Sports Talk, was the visit that Ted Irvine made to the show.
Yeah, Ted Irvine came on with you ahead of his induction to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and this was an awesome conversation. Played with the Kings and the Rangers and the Blues from 67 to 77. Just a different time. Talked about growing up in Winnipeg and making it to the NHL and playing in the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. So what a great conversation that was with him before being inducted into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame.
Now, we've also had, a who's who of local stars join the program, and many, many Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But I think our connection and the fun we've had with Sergio Castillo is on another level. The conversations when Sergio comes on are very different. And the one that you'll hear as part of this compilation for the past year is one where we are all over the place. We're talking food, we're talking music, we're talking professional wrestling, maybe even a little kicking. So I think you'll really enjoy that one. And speaking of kicking, another big interview that we had, a big moment for the city this year on the sports calendar that I think gets lost a little bit when people just kind of think back, was, of course, the Desiree Scott retirement game. The greatest soccer player to ever come out of this province, the most decorated player, finishing up her incredible journey with the women's national team, and then later on this year returning to the program, finishing up her professional career. And let's face it, Remo, everyone's day is a little bit better if you've got an interaction with Desiree Scott.
Yeah, what an incredible career that she wrapped up at Princess Auto Stadium this past summer with the national team. Olympic gold medalist, multiple-time Olympic medalist, Olympian, mainstay with Team Canada. What a career she's had. And it was great catching up with her and hearing about her journey from Winnipeg to the heights of her sport.
Yeah, and we actually had Desiree on a little later on, if you want to go through some of the other archives on the channel, along with Christina Litz, talking about the first year of the Northern Super League, the Canadian Professional Women's Soccer League that just wrapped up year number one, as well as moving on into retirement now that she kind of completed her journey with Ottawa and, of course, the national team this year. Speaking of Olympic gold medalists from Manitoba, Jennifer Jones also joined the program. She came on with to talk about her new book and a little curling talk as well. Moving on, she's, again, just always a treat to have on the program. So I think you'll love the conversation with Jen Jones. And then Remo, in the history of WST, probably one of the more unlikely guests that we have ever had. And this was not really much of a sports interview at all. But the one and only Steve-O came to town and came on the show. And I'll be honest, he kind of blew me away at how cordial he was, how much fun we had talking to him on the program, and kind of figured off we'd finish off with Steve-O for Christmas for everybody.
Yeah, he does, stunts? That's kind of sports adjacent. He goes on a skateboard.
Takes some hits.
But it was certainly a story of perseverance and determination, that he's been around for so long. Did a show here in Winnipeg, but started off, he talked about editing his own videos onto VHS and mailing them out 30 years ago. So to get into how he's feeling, after taking so many big hits, but it was a great conversation. He was at the side of the road in Utah or something at a highway and on his phone, and it came in crystal clear. So that was a lot of fun, Huss.
Yeah, it certainly was. So, we've got a whole bunch of fun interviews that you may have missed over the course of the year. Enjoy your time in the chat, everybody. And most importantly, have a wonderful holidays on behalf of myself, Remis, Connor, and Liz. Wishing you nothing but the best for this holiday season. We will be back next week as the Jets get back onto the ice and we get ready for New Year's. But in the meantime, stay warm, eat well, and have a wonderful holiday season, and enjoy some of our favorites from the past year here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to Winnipeg Sports Talk Bryan Little. Bryan, thanks so much for doing this. It is great to talk to you again. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
First off, how are you doing these days? I mean, you look great. How are you feeling?
Pretty good. I'm just home right now, just being a dad. I mean, my daughter's in a lot of activities, so just shuttling her back and forth between school and dance and gymnastics and stuff like that. So just she's keeping me busy, that's for sure.
Well, I definitely want to get to dad life and your family and your kind of life after hockey, but let's kind of go back to the summer of 2011, which certainly for people here in Winnipeg, kind of one of the most magical times. The Atlanta Thrashers relocate to Winnipeg. You were just an up-and-coming player. You had 3 years in the league. I have to ask you, how do you remember finding out about what was happening with your entire team, and what was your reaction then to be going from Atlanta, north of the border, to a Canadian hockey market in Winnipeg?
I remember pretty clearly how quick everything happened. I think they were talking, I can't remember what team they were talking about that was rumored to be moving. But I remember our season ending, and basically when we were coming in for meetings and cleaning out our lockers and stuff, they're just the team is sold. You guys are the team that's going to Winnipeg next year. And that was it. I was like, oh wow, I've never at that point I've never been to Winnipeg. I don't know anything really about it. I know Dale Hawerchuk and the Jets and the history and stuff, but it happened so fast. And I remember all that summer I was we were going back and forth between here and Winnipeg trying to find a place. I think we made a couple trips down to Atlanta because I was trying to get out of the lease for my apartment. I was trying to get a lease for my car, just panic selling stuff. And yeah, that whole summer was kind of a blur because we had to move so fast. And, it was such a big change, quickly. But I remember being, kind of in shock that it was happening to us. but also being excited because it's like, I mean, it's every Canadian player's dream to play for a Canadian team. And, everything you heard about Winnipeg, the fans and stuff, I was getting more and more excited as the season was coming up.
I imagine you probably got that feeling like on a couple of those trips during the summer to come in and just, to get a place. I mean, being here and that whirlwind, everything happening so fast, I think was the same for everyone. I mean, especially if you were, I mean, my God, the people that worked in the organization, turning that thing around from an AHL operation to getting ready for an NHL one was, I mean, something that we'll look back, in amazement that it happened so quickly. But I mean, do you remember a buzz in the city about what was to come, even when you were here just looking for a place before you'd actually put any equipment on or even skated in the peg?
Yeah, well, I remember seeing all the videos when it was announced, and like the camera shots from like downtown Winnipeg, like people on the street celebrating and stuff. So that was super cool. And I don't remember too much about like those first couple of trips to Winnipeg. It was the middle of summer, so the first thing I'm thinking is, I didn't know it got that hot out there in the summer, and everyone keeps talking. They're just like, just wait till the winter. You'll experience the whole thing. Um, but I just remember having a hard time finding a place to live. That's why we were out there so many times at first, because it was like, we're trying to find a place to rent, and it was like not a lot available compared to like a big city like Atlanta. So yeah, it was different for sure.
Well, I mean, you ended up getting the place. The team showed up. Obviously, you go through training camp, and I mean, I'll still never forget the first preseason game. Like Buff and
Yeah.
Stu dropping the gloves on that. Were you playing in that game?
No, I was disappointed I wasn't, but I watched that from like the press box, and yeah, same memories as everyone else. Like, I think Buff laid out like two guys in a row, then someone tried to fight him, and him and Stewie were fighting at the same time. And I was like the first shift of the game. Like, that was right away. So I remember like thinking like this feels like a playoff game. Like, this feels like a important game. And the energy in the building and stuff in that first shift, it was just like, this couldn't have went any better.
I'm not sure there will ever in hockey history be a more insane first exhibition game of the year than that one here in Winnipeg. And just the excitement, the 15 years of on a team, it all sort of came back. And listen, that magic kind of continued throughout the year. I mean, when people ask you now about that first year with the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, how do you look back at the 2011 season with the return of the Jets and being front and center of the club on the ice, and certainly one of the biggest representatives of Winnipeg, both on the ice and in the community?
I just remember the fans being so like just supportive and like excited about hockey being in back in Winnipeg. Even in like training camp, like at the practice complex, like, you know, the stands were jammed for like, our practices and training camp. And um, you know, the first every home game, it felt like the energy was like through the roof. Like every home game felt like a playoff game, and it was like so cool to play in front of that, especially coming from Atlanta, where like we were struggling to put, fill half the rink up. There's 6 or 7 thousand people there for most of our home games. So to go from two extremes and see that, it was just incredible. And I remember, I mean, we definitely struggled those first few years, coming from Atlanta. I mean, but the fans were so like just excited to have a team back that they were supportive no matter what.
I mean, there are so many characters from that team too. And I mean, I think that, obviously there's been great teams and you were a part of many of them. When people think back of, the 11-12, Winnipeg Jets and the return of the Winnipeg Jets, certainly yourself and some of the players, what do you remember? What Claude Noel, I mean, he was such a beauty. And I still think of our interviews with Claude back on the old radio station. Um, what was it like behind the scenes with Claude, kind of managing everything that you guys had been through, coaching a new team because he wasn't your coach the year before, all in the midst of all of this chaos with the upheaval, the move, and the excitement of welcoming NHL hockey back in this market?
Yeah, Claude was awesome. He always had some great sound bites and stuff. I think we were just all kind of in it together. We were all experiencing it together. I mean, he was coming in the NHL, so he was kind of figuring out the lay of the land, the players, the guys that we were facing every night. Our travel was like all messed up that year because we were in the same division, so we were like all over the place. So yeah, it was just like a whirlwind of a year. Like, we were all like, um, I think that's what made us kind of closer as a team and like really bond, just because we were like all going through this crazy, change together. And yeah, there some of those names from that first year, that I remember that the GST line and like some of the crowd chants that got going for that first year. I mean, that was awesome.
Well, the GST is legendary, and I still think, I mean, Jim Slater, one of my favorite guys to talk about. I mean, Chris Thorburn, Tanner Glass, but I mean, when we think back of that era, we think of Little, Ladd, and Wheeler. When you look back at your career, those two players in particular, I mean, your relationships with those guys and what you were able to do as the top line of the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, what stands out about Blake and Andrew and that time you had playing together with them?
I think just how well we got along. I mean, we were all in Atlanta together. We played a bit in Atlanta together. We made that change to Winnipeg, and we all kind of like grew up as people and as players together. And to see those guys, I mean, those were two of my favorite teammates I ever played with. They're both super good guys off the ice, and both great players. I mean, you know, I think those two are probably my favorite line mates, I ever played with. Blake was a great leader. Andrew was a great leader. I have nothing but good memories and good things to say about those guys. They were awesome.
Well, I mean, we certainly for years, I mean, and 4 years, we'll be seeing 16s and 18s and 26s in the rafters at the Canada Life Center. Probably if you look at the entire history of the Winnipeg Jets, I don't think there's any doubt that those three, along with 33s, will be the highest selling Jets. Dustin Byfuglien, I mean, as a teammate, like Buff's sort of a legend in his own right, but what was your relationship with Buff like? As a teammate, and how much fun was it just to watch him play, even if you were on the bench, seeing him do what he was doing?
Oh man, he was fun to watch and he was fun to be around off the ice. I think Buff is like such a lighthearted guy and like such a jokester. I mean, and he doesn't have an off switch with that. So it's like even during the game, even like on the bench in the dressing room before the game, and I'm kind of the opposite, and a lot of guys are the opposite. They come to the rink for the game. They're during the game. They got their game face on. They're serious and stuff. And then you got a guy like Buff there who knows that, and he tries to get a smile out of you like during the game or before a face off, and you're just like, that's Buff. That's what he does. But he was definitely one of a kind. I mean, watching him play, he has to be the strongest guy to ever play in the NHL. Like, this naturally could, I mean, everyone's seen videos of him in scrums, just like grabbing two guys, throwing them across the ice. Like, he was so fun to play with. And, when he was on the ice with you, he also felt like you were like, 6'5". So yeah, he was a beauty.
Bryan Little's with us, who will officially sign a contract and retire a Winnipeg Jet Sunday afternoon against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Bryan, what do you remember about Paul Maurice taking over and kind of the Maurice effect as to how he brought your group from a team that had a lot of talent to a team that, I think in a lot of people's opinions, maybe was a bit ahead of schedule, making the playoffs and getting into that series against the Ducks like you did in 2015?
Yeah, I think that Duck series was kind of a good experience for us to go through. There were a lot of guys in that room, quite a few guys that never played a playoff game, myself included. So to just see what the different level was, and the ups and downs, even in a one series, was a big learning experience for us. And I think Paul was kind of the right guy for the job. He's someone that had a lot of experience coaching and being in those situations, And yeah, he was such a good speaker and a good motivator. Um, yeah, and I think he kind of helped us. If we took that step early, it's probably because of him, because he was great behind the bench for us.
That was, in 2015, it was a short series. I was down at the 2 games in Anaheim, and I mean, they were absolute nail biters. I don't think you'll ever have a closer 4-game series, but you came back, you scored 2 of your most memorable goals in the playoffs, as the Jets returned. But I mean, that whiteout, that period that I'm sure you and everyone, wanted to go longer. But what do you remember about coming out for the first time at the arena in front of the whiteout as in the playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets?
It was so cool. That was one of my favorite memories, that first playoff series, because that's the first taste of it I got. And I remember just driving down to the rink for the first home game, and it was just like jammed, because like everyone, like there were thousands of people outside. And I remember coming out on the ice for a warm up, and it was like every single person was like in their seats, like standing up for warm up. I've never seen that before. It was so cool. And yeah, everyone was just like, all the guys were so pumped up, because like the majority of us had never played in a playoff game before. So to come out to that atmosphere, like one of the best in hockey, probably the best playoff atmosphere in hockey, it was incredible. I mean, it was one of those times that you had to try and calm yourself down, because you were like too fired up. So yeah, that first series, and like you said, it was like, I thought it was definitely a closer series than the outcome projected. And we had some games where we kind of blew a lead there, and probably deserved a bit better. But I think, like I said, that was kind of the inexperience kind of showing itself.
There was a bit of a reset with the club personnel-wise over the next couple years, but I imagine that experience against a team like Anaheim, in a lot of ways, probably taught you guys, it's still a relatively young team, what it was going to take that next step. And obviously, a big part of that led into that amazing 2017-18 season for you and the Winnipeg Jets, going all the way to the conference finals.
Yeah, that was really special. That run, and that's the one I kind of think about the most now that I'm done. Was like, oh man, like it's so hard just to get into the playoffs. I mean, like there's 50% of the teams don't make the playoffs. So nowadays it's just so hard to get in, and then it's just a grind when you get in. So thinking back on that series, like that was for me, that was my chance. And just looking back, it's just tough to look back at it now. But it was an amazing experience, and man, we had a really good team that year.
Well, no doubt. I mean, in those couple of years, I mean, and again, it speaks to how many great teams they are and how difficult it is to win. But some of our greatest memories are of those squads. One of the other, I mean, we've spent a lot of time this week talking about your contributions to the team and to the community. We'll always remember that Heritage Classic, which unfortunately ended up being your final goal. But I mean, what a moment that was. What do you remember about that outdoor game, scoring that goal? I mean, a historic goal in Winnipeg Jets history, and everything around it. Because from a fan and a media standpoint, it was such a unique event that it was in a non-NHL city. You had Winnipeg and Calgary sort of meeting in the middle. You had a very split crowd, a very close game, and a thrilling overtime win by you in those beautiful Heritage unis.
Yeah, I actually got my last goal was in Anaheim, I think. Yeah,
Oh, was it?
slap shot, I think. Yeah, but I like to think of that as my last goal. That'd be better. No, that was really cool, because I remember the first outdoor game in Winnipeg I had missed because I was injured, and I was like so bummed about it, because I wanted to play in one so bad. Um, so yeah, when we were supposed to play in Saskatchewan, there, I was like so fired up for it. And I remember like that the practice the day before, it was like so windy and cold. Like I just was not prepared for that. Like especially going up one end of the ice, you're just going into a headwind, and the glare off the rink. But yeah, that was super special. And my like parents and my brother came out for that game. Um, it was kind of different being in a neutral position, like you said. So like the crowd was kind of split. I mean, there was a lot of Winnipeg fans though, but yeah, I mean that's definitely one of my best memories, and that last year.
I mean, like I kind of hit on some of the playoffs, some of the things. Is there any other things that maybe fans wouldn't remember or wouldn't think that stands out to you when you look back at, all your time with the Winnipeg Jets, whether it be home or on the road, that is a memory that that really stands out to you when you look back at your great career?
Uh, I'm not sure. It's weird. I was like, a lot of my like favorite memories and the memories that are like clearest are the ones at home, and I think that's kind of for a reason, because playing in Winnipeg was pretty special. So it's fitting that all those memories happened in that arena in front of our fans. Yeah, like you said, like, you brought most of them up, like the first playoff series in that run, 2018. Um, yeah, just that's probably what I miss most. It's kind of in front of those fans. So that's it.
In speaking with people in the organization and others that have known you leading into this, I mean, it was pretty clear that you, your wife Brittany as well, had a real connection to this city. I mean, you're back in your hometown of Cambridge now, raising a young family. But how would you describe your connection with Winnipeg and the fan base that built all the way from that first game in 2011 until this weekend when we officially welcome you back and you retire as a Jet?
I mean, Winnipeg, I think, will always be one of those places that, no matter how long you're not there for, when you go back, it feels like you never left. It feels like kind of like home again. And we were actually just out there last weekend for a wedding. We were only out there for like a day and a half, but we were kind of in and out. But yeah, it's just every time you're back there, it just, getting in that airport, and, it feels like you really never left. It's strange. And um, yeah, I can't remember the last game I've been to. It's been quite a few years now, but yeah, I'm looking forward to like getting in the arena and just like seeing the guys and the trainers and all the staff and stuff again. Because that's been a while. I mean, those guys they're busy. I know what it's like to be in a 2 game season where you're traveling and playing every other night. But yeah, it'll be good to actually to see those guys in person, guys I haven't talked to in a while.
People will be interested to know about your relationships with former teammates, and you played with a lot of them over the course of the years. Who are the guys that you're closest, and did you still keep in touch with many of the guys that you played with during your time here with the Jets?
Yeah, like the guys that I probably keep in touch with are the guys that I went up with, most of my time in Winnipeg. Guys like Ladd and Wheeler, and Tyler Myers, I was just texting with the other day. Yeah, just guys. Ben Sherrod, actually, he lives pretty close by, and we usually see them a few times this summer. So yeah, it's not just guys in Winnipeg that are there. I mean, a lot of guys that have branched off to other teams that I still follow, and guys that are done now. So yeah, everyone's kind of all over the place.
It's funny. Mark Scheifele's now a grizzled veteran here in Winnipeg. Was obviously a big part of this team now. Um, Brian, there's. I mean, listen, we could get into more on the hockey, but I did want to ask you just on a personal side. I mean, now that your professional career is behind you, how's your family, and how's dad life with a young one? What, just getting into school now?
Yeah, she's in grade one. She gets homework now, which is crazy. I probably only got a few years left of being able to help her with that. But yeah, she's in like, I don't know. She does like gymnastics, dance, swimming. I mean, there's about every 6 days of the week we got something after school. So a lot of activities, but it's really cool because like I get to be there for all that and watch her grow up and stuff. That's kind of I guess one of the silver linings or positives you can take away from this happening. I mean, it definitely sucked to end that way, but I got to see so much of her growing up in her early years. And so I think it'll be really cool for her to, like, now that she's a little bit older, be in the arena and like see what her dad kind of used to be. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, now you're into the world of being a professional transportation operation from one school to dance to other activities moving forward. You haven't been just sitting around though. Tell us about what you're doing athletically. Triathlon. How did you get into this? Why do you love it? I mean, what does it replace maybe as a professional athlete all that long that gets you into one of honestly the most grueling and challenging feats of athleticism you could possibly even attempt?
Yeah, I got into it. Um, Actually, we moved out to the country or kind of outside the city a bit, like 2018-ish, and I remember I got a road bike because there's like lots of cyclists around here, and I would just do it for like on the weekends, just short ones, like for kind of like recovery rides when my legs were sore. And then I can't remember, like as like these like YouTube videos of triathletes, like this guy Lionel Sanders, Canadian, he's pretty big in the triathlon world. Um, had these crazy YouTube videos of himself training in his basement, and I was like, these guys are friggin' crazy. Like the amount of work they do, and just like usually like on their own behind the scenes, like the hours they put in. And so I thought, I got the bike, I can kind of run, like I can do sprints and stuff. And so I thought I'd give it a try. And I actually did my first two sprint triathlons when I was still playing. Um, and I just did one at the end of the summer. So I was in really good shape for hockey, but it's definitely humbling, like when you're out there or like swimming and you're just getting passed by like 70-year-old women, like, and I remember I had to take like multiple breaks, like just doggy paddling and stuff. And yeah, like it's a whole different, like, kind of physical shape to be in. Yeah, from, I was like in great shape. I was strong. I could run, 100 meters fast, but like the first race, there was a 5K, and I was like absolutely dying by the end of this thing. So I remember thinking like it's one of those things too that you're like, why am I doing this? Like I'm never gonna do this again. And then you finish and you're like, I can't wait to do that again. I can't wait to do more of that. Which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I remember thinking like when I was done playing hockey, like maybe I'll actually like train for one of these and see what I can do. So yeah, I came a bit earlier than I was hoping, but yeah, I've gotten really into it and kind of done longer and longer ones. Couple half Ironmans the last couple of years. So yeah, it's uh, kind of something to like strive for, to have goals for, and keeps me busy and keeps me in shape and stuff.
Three really separate disciplines. I mean, running and biking. What about swimming? Is that more challenging than the others? I mean, you mentioned you're getting past at the start. Is that something you have to work on a little bit more?
Oh yeah, like it's swimming is so hard. It's definitely the hardest for me out of the three. That's kind of why I liked it too, because it wasn't just like running races or like doing bikes and stuff like that. It was kind of three different things. So I felt like I wouldn't get sick of one. I could just keep doing three things. But swimming is so hard, and it takes so long to get better at. It's kind of like it's a lot like golf. Like it's super technical, and it's not like something that you can work harder, like run more, bike more, and you get better. It's like you have to have like the right form and everything. And yeah, just it was really a struggle the first couple of years of doing that. But it's something now like I enjoy, and like I'm starting to slowly get better at it. So yeah, it's that's kind of why I enjoyed it, I think, is it's because it's something I'm not very good at, and I'm kind of making goals to try and get better.
Well, it's so cool to hear that you're still competing and obviously doing something. I think most of us could only imagine even attempting. Never mind doing it regularly and coming back for more. Bryan, one more just about kind of post hockey. Hockey has been such a big part of your life. Moving forward, your family's growing up. I mean, have you thought more about what is next for you, and specifically about potentially being back involved in hockey in some way?
Yeah, it's something I've thought about, um, but honestly, I haven't kind of been like in a rush for it. I've just been kind of enjoying, you know, being around my family and my daughter, and doing hobbies that I haven't really got to do before. So yeah, I think maybe eventually I want to get back into it, but like I said, I'm not really in a rush. Like I'm kind of enjoying being like a fan of it and following the team and just watching it on TV and stuff. So yeah, like I told someone the other day, they asked me like, "Oh, how much he's skating?" Like he plays shinny and stuff, and I think I've had my gear on once in the last like 4 years since I stopped playing. Like I've been on skates for like holiday skates and family skates like that, but like playing like shinny or something, like I've only had my equipment on once. Like so, it's something like I miss the games and I miss that part, but I don't miss like I'm not itching to get out and just go play pickup with buddies.
Well, I can tell you if you ever thought of getting in, whether it be the coaching, management, scouting, player development, I have a feeling the team right here would love to bring you back in the fold. Thanks so much for doing this, Bryan. All the best.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
This is what I'm really looking forward to. What a pleasure it is to welcome in a 2024 inductee to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, Ted Irvine, to the program. Ted, thanks so much. It's a real pleasure to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I think a lot of people will really be interested in, your path and growing up here in Winnipeg that took you all the way to the NHL. Tell us about, Ted Irvine as a kid, cutting his teeth playing hockey, and before we were even thinking about professional hockey, growing up in Winnipeg and loving the game.
Well, Winnipeg was great for me because I grew up in the Isaac Brock area, and you were just asking us through the prairie where the old football stadium was in the old Winnipeg Arena. And as a lot of kids in Winnipeg, I played a lot of street hockey, loved the game. I played all sports, but hockey was something I loved. Who would ever think you'd be going to the NHL? That time with media, you didn't know a lot about the NHL. You could see it on Hockey Night in Canada. But I guess I got a little older, I started getting a little better, and I was signed by the Boston Bruins, my old baseball coach, Jake Epps, when I was 16 years old. Because at that time, the NHL teams owned the teams in the cities. So Boston Bruins happened to own two teams in Winnipeg, St. Boniface and Winnipeg Braves. And Jake, being a scout, came over to my house, and I signed with the Boston Bruins when I was 16. And that's when I knew something was serious was going on. From there, then I had the opportunity to play junior hockey here in Winnipeg, and that's how it all got started.
Well, and that I'm just looking at your DB. I mean, the 63-64 season, you're starring here in the city, playing with the St. Boniface Braves, and then you get called up and play in the National Hockey League. Fill us in on your first NHL game, how you found out, and what that experience was like.
That was another shocker in my life. That didn't happen in those days. We played in Winnipeg, and I was signed with Boston, and I was sitting in the theater on Saturday afternoon watching The Great Escape for the sixth time, and my dad walked through the theater, and my buddy said, "Somebody's died, Irv, here's your dad." He came and got me, and he said, "Come on, you're going flying to Boston." I'd never flown in my life. "Go get a haircut. Mom's shining your shoes. You got to have a suit." And I flew down to Toronto and met the team after their game, and I flew private jet down to Boston with a steak as a meal and met some of the guys. And that was Milt Schmidt and Lynn Patrick. Drove me to the hotel, give me a $100 bill. My dad said, "They give you money, put it in your shoe," because there's a lot of gangsters out there. Put me in a hotel, which I had no idea. Color TV, said, "Go to the rink tomorrow." I went to the rink the next day. They said, "You're playing tonight." Went back to the hotel. I didn't know how to order food at the restaurant, so I ate a egg salad sandwich and chocolate milk with one of those machines for 50 cents, went and played the game that night. And that was my start, the one and only game in Boston. And last year on Chris's cruise, one of the hockey fans gave me the original rookie card, which I've never seen in my life till last year. That was awesome. I cried. Chris said, "What are you crying for?" I said, "There's my hockey card." He said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Look at my stats. It's embarrassing." 0, 0, 0. But that was how I got to Boston, and that's how I got to play. The following year, I was supposed to go play in Oshawa with Bobby Orr. And they wouldn't let me leave Winnipeg because they'd paid for my contact lenses and skates that year, so I had to stay. And then the following year, I was going to Oshawa. It turns out I turned pro. when I was 19, 20 years old. I didn't play my last year junior. So Boston was key to my career. The guys I played with in Oklahoma City, we won the championship 2 years. Joey Watson just called me the other day. I have strong connection for our original Boston. But I only played one game.
What do you remember about that first game?
You probably read the stat. They put me out. They had me playing right wing, and I came over the blue line with my head down, and a Toronto Maple Leaf player got a 2-minute penalty for kneeing. He jumped up and kneed me in my chest. It was Eddie Shack. 2 minutes for kneeing. My breath, I'm out of breath. I skate to the bench, and one of the veterans, Leo Boyven, says, "Keep your head up, kid. This is the NHL." That's my first shift.
That everyone has their welcome to the National Hockey League moment, but to have it involving Eddie Shack, I think tells you what the game was like at that point. You mentioned you turned pro. You played in Minneapolis and OKC, and then a lot more opportunity was there for players. Tell us about how you ended up in LA, beginning that portion of your career before going to New York, where I think most people remember the majority of your playing time in the bigs.
Yeah, in the old days, I played in that 6-team league, and it was very difficult to make it to the National Hockey League. So when I signed with Boston Bruins, and I played 3 years in the minors. And we had Jerry Cheevers in goal, Bernie Perrant, Cashman. We had a great hockey player. We just could not get an opportunity to play in the NHL. Those players played there 10, 15 years. The loyalty was, it was very difficult to get there. So playing in Oklahoma was wonderful because we played against all, like the Montreal guys, Savard and all these guys. They were down in Houston. So we played against great hockey players. And then the expansion came, the 12-team expansion, and I was drafted by the Los Angeles Kings. And that's where I got my opportunity to start in the NHL.
What was it like being a National Hockey Leaguer with the LA Kings, like in Southern California in the late 60s? I imagine it's a very different scene today than it was back then when, the hockey was just growing at the time.
Well, great question. We had nobody for asking for an autograph. They didn't know who we were when Toronto and Montreal came in. There's more jersey for Toronto and Montreal in our building. Jack Kent Cook, a wonderful man, started the franchise. Don't worry, boys. These are all Canadians. We'll turn them around. So at first, nobody knew us. And because we played on the coast, our road trips were so long, and we'd go into town, Chicago, Montreal, Toronto. Nobody knew who we were. Our meal money on the road was more than we were making playing in the NHL. It was one of those things we knew, but that was okay. We had a close team. I was lucky because Mr. Cook bought the Eddie Shore's Springfield hockey team in their list, and that was the Brian Kilrays and Dale Ross. They had good hockey players. So in LA, we had a good hockey club. We competed very well in the NHL, but nobody knew us. And slowly, the Hollywood movie stars started coming in our dressing room. The Jack Lemmons and the Walter Matthau's and some of the movie singers, and started to become friends with them. And the LA Lakers are there, Wilt the Stilt and Jerry Wace. So we were hanging with them in New York in the bars, and slowly we started to feel like LA Kings. But it was a lot of changes of players. They had a reunion a couple years ago, 50th year. I went down for it. They had one player come back, played one game, but he was an original, so he came back. So yeah, nobody knew, but we really didn't know. We were learning about the NHL. We were learning about money. We were learning about trips. We were learning about rules, and we didn't have an NHL player. We had Terry Sawchuk was the only guy that really played in the NHL. So we didn't know what the NHL was like. And thank God for Terry Sawchuk, because they treated us kind of poorly early on in the days, and Terry just went and told him, "You can't treat these boys like that." They told him to go home. Jack Kent Cook said, "That's my only NHL guy I got." And thanks to Terry Sawchuk, we got our meal money, we got cars, we got places to live. So we were unknowns, and in the league, when we went in these cities like Chicago, especially Montreal, skating around Montreal, that's what I grew up watching, Toronto Maple Leafs. We were starstruck. So we didn't fit in, but we learned, and we had a pretty good hockey club, and so then we slowly started to become part of the NHL, but the crowds weren't there. We were 7,000 people.
Ted Irvine is with us, one of the 2024 inductees to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. How did you end up going from LA to New York?
Well, that was a trade. I had a pretty good year in LA. And then I got hurt in the playoffs. I had my abscessed tooth. I got hit stick in the mouth in Boston, and I couldn't play the final game in the playoffs. And that didn't. They wanted me to play. The doctor said no, and the management wasn't happy with me. I ended up getting traded next year to New York. How that would happen is I fought a little bit, and I ended up being in a fight with Bob Plager and Noel Picard for the St. Louis Blues. And Emile Francis happened to be scouting that game, and he traded for me. Called me in the office. I saw that fight. You were taking on two guys, and nobody was helping you. I said, oh, you don't expect me to do that again. Have you ever seen the size of that Picard? And that's where it started. I went into New York in February of that year. I remember getting traded, rooming with Billy Fairbairn, who I'm still good friends with, going down and meeting the players in the lobby, and this is the New York Rangers, and I'm from Isaac Brock. Their suits were worth more than my salary. I played the game, and from February on, I got one goal. That was a disaster. So that was my start in New York. I went to training camp. I said, I'm not going to make this team. So I decided to get in the best shape of my life, and I came into camp, and I said, I'm going to run everybody on that ice, because we used to play a lot of inter-squad games. I ran Jean Rattel, John Belleville and Jean Rattel, two of the classiest men on and off the ice I've ever met. Johnny flattened me. After the game, I was embarrassed. I wasn't going to make the team. I just hit my favorite guy, knocked on the door, and it was Jean Rattel. I said, I'm sorry, Johnny. He said, Teddy, you keep doing that. We need you to do that. He welcomed me to the team. I said, Johnny, I only got one goal last year. He said, Teddy, it was beautiful. That day I had a role with the New York Rangers. Keep hitting, fight if you have to. And I made a spot on the third line with my buddy Pete Stemkowski and Bruce McGregor. We were voted the best third line in Ranger history. So that's how I got to New York. Emile Francis saw me. I got to play. Had key guys support me, and the fans have always been terrific to me. So I was lucky to play my 5 or 6 years in New York. Today I still go back. I'm still treated as somebody, and special time. But to play in the NHL as a kid, it's pretty nice. I live my dream.
And of course, doing it with an original 6 team, I imagine that the scene in the Big Apple with the New York Rangers, an established original 6 team, was probably significantly different than what you just told us about being one of the early LA Kings.
Good for you, Andrew. To play in the old original 6, it still to this day has a magic to it. But to play in Madison Square Garden was crazy fans. First game against Philadelphia, hey, Irvine, you bum, why don't you fight Schultz? Those are my own fans. You knew they were passionate. But to play in Madison Square Garden, it's on the 7th or 8th floor of the Garden. You go up by elevator. Such a massive place, such a history. To skate on the ice with all the banners. And in those days, the ice was terrible because the Knicks basketball played in the afternoon. We played at night. It was terrible ice. But I was part of the Rangers. And when teams came in, they wanted part of the Big Apple. So everybody's level went a little higher. So did yours. When we went on the road, especially in the early days with Oakland and the St. Louis, everybody wanted to beat the Big Apple. Those players played like they never played before, and we had to meet the challenge. So it became, you're in a different team, and you're also in a different city. The history is going to make people hate you in some ways. It was such an honor to play there. And some of the awards I got there were the Players' Player Award, voted by the players as the most valuable guy. And I got the media, the nicest guy to work with. I have so many memories from there. When I go back and if I watch Chris Russell, the fans will still come up, hey, Teddy Evan, number 27. That's why when I went to St. Louis, I was finished. I had nothing to fight for anymore. Guys weren't the same, and they're all good. It was an honor to play in the NHL, and now I realize even more. There's only one Original 6, and there's only one Madison Square Garden, and I was there to play.
You know, it's such an incredible story. I mean, growing up here on Strathcona and Isaac Brock and playing for the St. Boniface Canadians, going all the way to Madison Square Garden with, one of the most famous teams in the history of the sport. At what point was playing pro hockey even on your radar, Ted? I mean, and at what point did it seem realistic? Because it seemed like it happened pretty quickly with that call to head to Boston.
Well, what happened was we were competitive, but 4 teams in the city at that time. We never played 4 games. They were double headers, But Brandon Wheat Kings were in town. in Brandon, and they were part of our league with Jake Milford. One year, Jake and the Brandon Wheat Kings were going to the Western Canada Memorial Cup, and Jake called, and I went and played for the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Memorial Cup in Edmonton. I got 4 or 5 points against Edmonton, who were brutal. You had Paddy Quinn, Sathers, they were tough, and they beat the royal daylights out of us in Brandon. We just didn't have the size or the strength. But I remember that series, I did pretty well. Then I recognized, I can compete. Then I made the All-Star team in Manitoba. We played against the Saskatchewan All-Star. And I went and played. I was still young. Kenny Reardon was a scout for Montreal, and he had in the paper, I like this kid, Ted Irvine. And so I started to think it a little bit. But again, those days you didn't have the publicity, you didn't have the write-ups all the time, so you lost touch a little bit. And then when I signed with Boston as a 16-year-old, they paid me $500 for the whole year. It was big money, man. Then I knew they were interested in me, and they kept in touch with me. I had my picture taken with Mr. Adams, who owned the team, and I knew then I had a chance to play. And I'd played enough other provinces, because we were always intimidated at that time. We didn't know what the rest of the Canada was like, because we never saw them. All you do is read about them in hockey news. Once I started playing against them, I realized, I can skate. I did pretty well, and I started to accept. And then things happened with Boston. They moved me along pretty quick. That one game in Boston, and they called me right after. I played 7 games in Minneapolis as an amateur-type pro. And then I made the team. So it happened pretty quick. I'd say 17, 18. I started to really believe. Because who do you compare with in town? It wasn't happening for anybody else. Even the teams I played for, what the hell are they calling you for? And, but they took a liking to me, and I thank them very much to this day. Boston was a key part of my being in the National Hockey League.
Well, 724 games in the National Hockey League in both Boston and then LA Rangers, and as you mentioned, finishing up in St. Louis. And obviously people focus on what happens on the ice, but a big part of your legacy, Ted, is also off the ice. You won the 75 Charlie Conacher Humanitarian Award in working with people with disabilities, and that led to co-founding Special Olympics here in Manitoba. If you could tell us how that came together and why it was important for you to be involved, and how that's helped you post-career.
Well, what happened, Andrew, is when I played, I was taught when you're an athlete, whatever athlete, in professional, especially in the National Hockey League, give back. So I did a lot of banquets, golf tournaments. I was laughing the other day. I was doing some notes. I even did the dunk tank, and a lot of things I'd help raise money for. And at that time, it was called the intellectual disability. When I was younger, in my career, a guy named Don McKenzie held a camp for ex-pros to get us in shape, and we played an exhibition game. And I remember we raised some money, and I was with Don. We went to the government with a check to support the disabled, and they basically said, I said, can we put these kids on skates? No, they can't do it. And from that phrase, from there, I remember I was always involved, and I did a lot of stuff with the handicapped. And then New York Rangers submitted my name, and I won that trophy. And that was big. It was 1,500 people, Bobby Hall, Gordie Howe. The previous other winners were John Beliveau, and then there's Gretzky and Orr. So I take great pride to have my name surrounded. It's not my stats. It was the ability of all the guys to give to the community. And to this day, NHL players still do in a good fashion. So then that happened. I went to the World Games. I met the Kennedy family. I went to the 4th World Games, and I met some people from Special Olympics, a guy named Harry Red Foster. When I quit hockey, I was lost. I was going through a transition, and nothing to do. Winnipeg Jets had approached me with WHA, Teddy Green. It just wasn't there for me anymore. I remember I got a call from Harry Red Foster, Special Olympics, says, Ted, there's no chapter in Manitoba. Special Olympics is a movement around the world because of the Kennedy family. Would you start a chapter in Manitoba? And I said, I'd love to. And that's where it started. I went to the school that day, and they were working hard with the disabled kids. And I said, I'm here to start Manitoba Special Olympics. And they said, leave the building, please. You guys are elitism. And they weren't mean-spirited. They were doing great work. I did. Phone Harry Red. He says, keep working at it, Ted. And I did. That's when Dan Johnson came on the scene. His sports background, political background, and just good friendship. That's how we got started. The Manitoba Special Olympics. Started the crowds. We had no money. We raised it. And it was the greatest experience in my life. And I thank Special Olympics to this day for coming into my life at a time when I needed some support. So I always laugh at people, oh boy, you've given to the Special Olympics. I've been with these people 4 years. I'm looking at 4 pictures in my office right now of thank yous from Special Olympians. I have a good friend I just speak the other night, a 33-year-old kid from Whitby who just lost his championship in baseball. He's been friends of mine for years. Special Olympics have made a difference in my life. So being a part of starting it here in Manitoba, when I go into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, the guys from OB were there, Kelly and Jimmy Rod, they said, what do you think? What do you think? I said, there's a girl going in named Brita Hall. She's going to the Manitoba Special, she's going to the Hall of Fame with me. I'm going, how did this happen? Her first Special Olympian going into the Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm going with her. That's a highlight of my life. I had a great career, but to be able to be part of these other people's lives and see how far it's grown in this world, I'm very, very proud to be a small part of that whole movement.
It is just an incredible story and an amazing part of your legacy, Ted. And it's important for us to be able to talk about that. I mean, Special Olympics is, I think most people know, does such amazing work all around the world. But here, and you're still involved. I mean, we were just talking before we went on the air. You're actually going to be doing another gig for Special O tomorrow, helping them continue raise important funds here in Manitoba.
Yeah, they reached out and asked me to be the speaker, which is very kind. Why it's kind is I've had 2 weeks of reviewing who I am in my life from hockey and Special O and the media work. I mean, I had a great love. I've been supported by the media very, very well in this town and New York. And so it gave me a chance to review. Yeah, and I'm going to speak at the gala dinner to help raise some more money for Special O. As the Kennedy family always said, we got to give them more sports, more option, and include them more. And I've been part of it for a lot of years, and now Special O has a big dinner, going to raise some good money, and it's going to go to a good cause, which is all these young athletes who deserve a chance to play all sports.
This has been such a fun conversation. I can't thank you enough. And once again, on behalf of all of us here at Winnipeg Sports Talk, congratulations on going into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, and good luck with the Special Olympics event tomorrow. I know how important that is to you.
Very important, Andrew. Let me say to you, great questions. You did your homework, and I love that detail. You got stuff out of me that I never thought I'd tell you.
It is Blue Bomber kicker and great friend of the program, Sergio Castillo. Sergio, what is going on? It's great to have you back on WST. How you feeling?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me. Glad to be here. I heard you guys talking about, golf earlier. I'm like, I hope I get invited to that too.
Hey, you know what? We'd love to get you out at Breezy. How's the game? Do you get out quite a bit? And who do you play with when you're playing?
So lately it's been my wife and my son. I finally got, my wife has the golf bug.
Nice.
Right? Yes. So now I don't have to make excuses while I'm out for 4 hours. She's there with me, and she's seen my pain. And she understands the pain now, right? Because you get that one good shot, and she's like, "Why can't I create this all the time?" I'm like, and that's why we golf.
That's the
right?
game. That's the
game, right? But with the boys, Jake Kelly, Jameson's he's just so good. Him and Jake Kelly, they're pretty darn good. And then just Benson once in a while when we get out there as well. But lately it's just been with the wifey and my little boy Jared, right? So he's he hit a drive the other day. I think it went a good 35, 40 yards in the air. So, hopefully he can keep it going, being on the course.
I got to tell you, you get the young ones in there early, and if they really take to it, I mean, it's an amazing sport. You can play your entire life. Let me ask you just about your job in specific as the kicker. How different is it preparing and going out trying to execute like a 58-yard nuke as opposed to, say, a 40-yarder? I mean, is it essentially the same thing and you're just going through the same motions, or is the run-up longer? I mean, do you do things differently when you're trying to connect from long range, which you do better than anybody else in the CFL?
Appreciate those words. It's the same process every time. If you look at an extra point, it goes 60, 65 yards every time, right? So if you can create the same, it's all about having the same process, the same cues, right? I tell myself my same cues, and everybody's different, but for me, it's being soft on my feet. And if I'm soft on my feet, everything else will be squared. It will be, foot to ball contact. So for me, it's just being soft on my feet, 2 deep breaths, and that's what I remind myself every single time. Now, I will say this. So Friday morning, the wifey and Jared and I, we go have breakfast, and I'm trying to remember the name of this gentleman. But him and his wife, they bought our breakfast. And he's like, hey, Serge, I always sit on section 141. And he's like, you can't miss me. And he's like, I'm always standing and I have my hands up when you're going to go kick. And sure enough, I'm kicking the 58 and I see this gentleman with his hands up. And I think he had an old Bomber jersey. I think it was a Milt Stegall one. And I see him on the right center of the field goal post. And I'm like, that's where I'm aiming. I'm aiming towards him. So other than purchasing the breakfast for my family and I, he gave me a good location to point for the 58-yarder.
And people say the fans don't help out the product on the field.
Mind you, so this, and my breakfast is not something that's little or I mean, I'm not going to say a lot, but it's not cheap either, right? I always have a 3-egg meat lover's omelet along with 4 or 5 pancakes, right? And then if you count the other 2 that I eat from my son because he never finished it, I'm the reliever. Speaking of baseball, I always have to come in clutch and finish all the pancakes.
You probably got to go have a nap after that breakfast.
Oh, I do, and I love. So I'll have a big old breakfast, and then I just love watching movies. We're actually watching Happy Gilmore, Mr. Deeds. The wifey had never seen Mr. Deeds. I'm like, you missing out. So we were on Adam Sandler binge watch right before the game.
Sergio Castillo's with us from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Sergio, you also put out a nice Instagram post recently celebrating 100 games in the Canadian Football League. Just thoughts on that milestone and how comfortable you are being here in Winnipeg as a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers now.
It's I was talking with Osh today, and I was reminiscing on the time from when it first started, right? And my first game, I remember being October 10th, 2015, and it was in BC. And I remember in warm-ups, I had a bad warm-up. And Osh comes up to me, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is normal. I always have a bad warm-up. And, man, boy, was I nervous.
I always have a bad warm-up. That's what the coach wants to hear, I'm sure.
Right? And it's just crazy how it's about to be 10 years ago, right? And it's been through 5 different organizations, 5 different cities. And the way I see it is I'm like, at least 5 different cities in the CFL, right? And a couple down south. And I've just enjoyed the people I've met along the way, the memories I've been able to make, not only just me, but the people who have supported me along the way, right? My wife, my coaches from high school, college, even middle school, and my friends, they've been able to live this dream of my dream as well, right? And so it's just been an amazing journey so far. A kid from La Joya, Texas, didn't know much about football, and I'm still learning, right? I still don't know much. I just kick the ball and that's it. But it's just been an amazing journey just to be where I'm at right now, right? And just fortunate to be playing, 10 years into this.
Was your background, like as a kid growing up on the soccer pitch? Like, was that kind of how you got going and then transitioned to football?
Yeah, it was soccer, baseball, but also music. I was in band in high school, and originally I wanted to major in music, right? And I remember the first time they told me, hey, Sergio, you're going to be on the football team. This was my sophomore year in high school. I told the coach, I'm like, thank you, but hey, if I cannot march in halftime, if I can't be in band, I'm not going to play football. And he's like, oh, no, we'll find a way. And he's like, we've had kickers in the past who were in band. And so my mom would drop me off at 6:30 in the morning every day before school started. And I would kick before school. And then after school, I would do band. I would practice band. So, and it wasn't until my junior year, going into my senior year of high school, where I was like, hey, I can actually, do something, with this, maybe get a college education through kicking a football. And that's how it went. So, but originally it was soccer, and band, what I really wanted to pursue after high school.
So let me ask this, like when you negotiated this deal with the coach, like you're on the sideline, did you have to go change from your uniform to the band uniform, get out there at halftime and then rip back and get back into your kicking gear?
Yeah. So, marching band is big in the States and even Texas as well. Right. So, and then in La Jolla, we would, back then when we were one high school, we were close to, I think, 5,000 kids.
Whoa.
Right. So our high school games, you'd be 8, 9, 10,000, and you get into the playoffs, you'd be in the 12, 13,000 fans. Right. So halftime will come around. I'll take my pads off, and then I will put my bass drum on, because I was in the drum line. And then as soon as halftime performance was over, I would put my pads back on. So the first year, true story, when I first started playing football, I started questioning myself. I'm like, man, I'm not going to be able to get the halftime tacos that we would get from marching, right? So there is this, it was called Felix Barbecue Tacos. And after marching, my freshman year, after every performance, we'll get 2 tacos. You get one beef fajita, and then you get one with sausage, and then fresh homemade flour tortillas that were just so good. And I remember when I made the football team, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna be able to enjoy this. So what I started doing, I would leave my bass drum on purpose next to my kicking net, and my best friends, Steven and Roger, who are still my boys to this day, when they would pick up my drum, they would leave me 2 tacos in my kicking bag, and in the third quarter, I'd be on one knee and I'd be eating them.
Hey, you know what? This is a perfect time for you to get. We always love chatting food as well in this program.
Ooh, yes.
As a taco expert, I've noticed more and more taquerias sort of opening up in and around Winnipeg. Have you found? Is there a Sergio Castillo endorsed taco joint that taco lovers should try here in the Peg?
I haven't. Stanley and Patty have been sending me, a couple on Instagram. I can't recall the names. I haven't been to them yet, but so far it's been, whatever the wife cooks or whatever, or my mother-in-law. Before I came up for training camp, she probably made like a good 60 or 70 flour tortillas, and I froze them. And so I brought them over. So we just been freezing them like a little bit at a time. So. But I've been itching to go to, I think one of them's called Berto's or something like that.
Yeah, Berto's.
Yeah, that's the one that stands. And so as of right now, my house is a spot. and then I got, so my mother-in-law is going to come in August to help me take care of Jared while the wifey goes back and teaches. So everything that she makes is always fresh. So every day you're going to wake up to the smell of fresh homemade tortilla.
Oh, dude.
I might be mad because I might gain probably like 6 or 8 pounds in the month of August.
Your teammates are going to hear about this and go, hey, Serge, you need any help around the place? Just let me know when the tortillas are coming up.
I'll tell you this. Every time my mom comes and visits, since I was in university in 2009, my mom, along with my mother-in-law who came to visit in 22 when I was in Edmonton, every day they would probably make like 20 or 30 breakfast tacos for the guys. And over the week, they probably make over 100. So, and it's just all fresh, right? And so you can go with bean and egg or just beans and cheese, machacado con huevo. Machacado's dried, basically beef jerky with egg. That's so good right there. Or barbacoa, right?
I'm getting hungry just listening.
My mouth is watering right now.
This conversation. Hey, what about non-taco related, like not necessarily Mexican food at all? Mm-hmm. Have you, now that you've been here for a bit, you've been around, got the family, where are the go-to food spots for either you when you're going out with the fellas or with the family, your faves?
Obviously Nicolino's, Montechillos. I think I'm pronouncing it right, Montechillos. You can't go wrong with Leopold's as well. I'm trying to think. Osha's going to be mad, but BDI ice cream. Because he has his own favorite, which I can't remember, but I like BDI's. But it's just a nice little walk. You get about 2 cones for yourself, right? Because I don't like sharing with my son. And you just do a nice little walk over the bridge, right? But yeah, non-taco, those would have to be the spots. Pizza, we actually had St. Lucia's. Is that how you say it? Right?
Santa Lucia.
Santa Lucia, pretty good. Yeah, so those have been the spots for right now. Yeah.
Nicely done. Well, I'm sure just that's just some suggestions for a few people. Of course, our pal Nick over at Nicolino's takes good care of the fellas, and certainly a great spot before and after.
Yes.
The games.
When you go, you got to ask for the specific spicy sauce.
Yes. Well, I'll maybe leave that to the experts on this.
No. You got to try it.
Hey, listen, before we go, Remo and I are going to be making our picks for the track tonight. You ever get out and see the horses out at Assiniboia Downs?
All the time.
So fun.
So I grew up in the horse racing world back in Texas and a little bit in Mexico, right? And I have family and friends that used to ride. So or they're horse trainers. They're not jockeys anymore. So, but yeah, we try to get the family out there, and it's just nice, just chill environment. It's so open too, right? So the kids can be running around. Be nice to go shoot some photos of the horse races one of these days. I actually went to the Stampede in Morris.
On the weekend.
Yes. So the directors reached out, Mr. Weeb and Alexandra. They asked a while back, like in March, if I could come take photos. I honestly did not know it was this big. Talk about an adrenaline rush when, I think they're called chariot horse races.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And we loved it. I can't wait for next year. But next year I want to go to all 3 days.
It certainly is the biggest event of that nature in the province all year long. Yeah, Motown gets ready for the Stampede, and it was a busy one. Some great videos and shots over on
appreciate it.
Over on the spot. Sergio, always great catching up. How you feeling about getting back into the win column as the team heads out to Toronto on Saturday? Before
we're excited for the next opportunity, right? Which is Toronto, right? So, one thing I've been really good at the past couple of years, which I think has helped me on the personal standpoint elevate my game, is I've been where my 2 feet are at, right? I really enjoy day one. I'm enjoying the heck out of this conversation right now, and after this, I'm gonna go eat some tortillas, right? So. I think it's just if you're able to be present and not get too far ahead, then it eases the mind. If the mind is at ease, then the body will follow the rest, right? So just being where our 2 feet are at, and we'll go from there.
Well, as long as those tacos keep on fueling those nukes from your leg that keep on going through the uprights, that's what we need.
So the longest, sorry to cut you off, but the longest field goals I had last year were 260s, and then we've hit a 58 this year. And it's when the wife cooks me rice and beans every time with a good homemade salsa and tortillas, powered by beans, powered by frijoles.
Bring some of that on the road with you. You got to make sure you're fueled up and ready for a big one on Saturday against the Argos.
All right, we definitely will be.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this, Sergio. As always, say hi to the fellas back there, and good luck on Saturday. We'll look forward to doing this again later on this year.
Sounds good. You have a good one. I'll see you on the course.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, listen, you guys are back. You get that win, we'll have a pass and a tea time waiting for you when you come back.
Let's do it.
Right on. Desiree Scott joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What is up? It is great to have you back on the show.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
You mentioned the red and white, repping it forever. You've also always been repping your hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba. You were identified as a really talented player that had the opportunity to go out west, and you decided to stay home with the University of Manitoba and play with the Bisons. Take us back to that point, Des. I mean, how big of a part of your life was soccer at that time? And were you worried that the decision to stay home might prevent you from ever reaching the heights that you have done with the national team?
Yeah, I think when I was coming up the ranks, obviously not a league in, Canada. The option was like you had to go to university in the US if you wanted to make it anywhere. That was kind of the pathway and the route. And obviously Manitoba, I feel like I do rep it proudly, but not a lot of national team players come from here. I think it maybe gets a bad rep in terms of quality players that come from here. But for me, I was a homebody, had offers to go to the States, offers across Canada to go to school. But for me, I was like, how great would it be to play in front of family and friends every weekend? And I just remember like the program starting up in 2005, I'm aging myself, coming to my door, knocking and being like, hey, how would you like to stay and represent the Manitoba Bison? So perfect fit for me being a homebody. And I knew I was taking a risk at maybe not doing it the conventional way, but I kind of just trusted in myself and my own path and said, I want to play in front of my fam and friends and be a part of building something here special in my province. So it worked out.
Speaking of playing in front of family and friends, I'm sure not even you could have imagined what's to come Saturday, finishing up your incredible run with the national team. But
take us back before you went to U of M. I mean, how did you get involved in soccer? And Desiree, at what point did you think like, okay, maybe I can actually, this can take me somewhere in life and sort of become that path?
Yeah, for me, I started because of my older brother, Nick. He was a soccer player, very, very good, has a way better left foot than I ever had. But it was just something we sort of bonded over. I used to go to his games and I wanted to be just like my big brother. Found out from an early age that I was very competitive, like 12, 13. I had a little afro going and I was just like, and some people would say like, it's just a game, but I'd be crying after losses. And I knew I was very passionate about it. And then I was kind of like 13, 14 when I started to travel. I played in Calgary for the Calgary Wildfire. I was away for my first summer away from home, playing in a semi-pro league. And I just remember like feeling that competitive edge. I'm now leaving the province, sort of representing, and then you go to play for representing Manitoba on teams like that. And I think that was kind of like summer games, Canada summer games. You kind of get your first glimpse of representing something bigger than just the city. You're representing your province against other provinces. And often you don't realize what you can do with the sport until you have some people who have like told you got something special. And I've had an amazing support system that has been like, Des, you got to like go for this. And a lot of times I do chats and they're like, did you always dream about being a soccer player? And I didn't know what was available to me and where I would take my career and where this sport would lead me. Because I've been just so fortunate to ride the wave, love the sport, and just things have happened to work out through my hard work and dedication and love for it.
Well, I mean, I think of, yourself, Christine Sinclair, Diana Matheson. I mean, many of the women, you really have been trailblazers, and the opportunities for young women in 2025, very different than it was when, 20, 25 years ago. And that's a great thing for the sport. And you're a big, big part of it. I want to ask you, like the national team, like, this is the pinnacle of the sport in the country. What do you remember about getting the invite for the first time and showing up for your first training session with all of these women that you aspired to be teammates with?
Yeah, you're making me go in the memory bank now, but you don't forget that first moment. It was like 2010 with the full senior team. I remember getting a call in. I was actually at Club Nationals in Saskatchewan. Carolina Marache was the coach at the time, and I remember they over the loudspeaker, like Carolina Marache, Canadians national team coach in the building. And I was like, oh, dang, I had like a pulled muscle, wasn't planning on playing in the game, but they're like, Des, you got to get out there and try. So she was watching that match, and then I got invited in after that nationals. And I just remember kind of being like, oh, dang, it's getting real here now, and complete nerves. But I remember watching the national team, especially like the Diana Mathesons, 5'1", repping the midfield. Like she was someone I aspired to be and emulate. And then to be able to go into camp with her was pretty cool. The Christine Sinclair's, obviously everyone knows about her, but I remember going in and just like, they were like, get the bags. And I was like, oh man, I'm in for a long camp. Like they really let you know that you were new, but they took me under their wing, welcomed me in, and it was a slow burn, but a great experience for my first camp.
For the record, Diana owned that when she joined us earlier. She goes, you know what? She might say I wasn't the most welcoming veteran right off the top, but I mean, listen, at that level, I mean, there is an element of competition, and you go in and you realize, like, I got to prove myself and earn a spot on this team. Nothing's given.
100%. You earn that shirt and you earn the respect of the players who have paved the way for sure.
Your time, it would take too long to talk about everything that you accomplished and did with your teammates with the Nats. But I mean, the 2012 Olympics, what do you remember about that? And how, in a lot of ways, did that change your life?
2012, my first Olympic Games, really the pinnacle moment that changed, I think, Canadian women's soccer history. And just
Absolutely.
People started to take note of our team in this country and across the world, to be honest. For me, it was an amazing experience just being able to play in all the stadiums that you watch in the EPL, and you're there living it, you're training it. It was a great experience. Obviously, the tournament was a roller coaster of emotions. Everyone that I still meet to this day is like not over 2012 in that semifinal against the US. But for me, yeah, roller coaster. We bounced back against France, Diana Matheson scoring a goal in the final dying minutes. And I remember yelling, like with every vein popping, like, we did it. And that was like the moment to have that medal around your neck, to know that you've been a part of history. And it kind of just set the tone, like, this is what we want to continue to do. That was an amazing feeling. And we knew we were a team that could continue to have success.
I mean, 3 Olympic Games, a gold medal. I mean, there you are with your teammates celebrating. It is just an incredible story. Has there been, when was the pinch me moment for you as a member of the national team? Was it then after having a medal? Was it the gold? Or was it another time where you're just looking back at everything you and your fellow teammates achieved together and knowing the impact that you've made on the sport from coast to coast?
I think a lot of times when you're in it, especially for me, you don't realize the impact and like legacy that you're leaving behind and the people who are watching this team and like literally getting into the sport because of the players who are here. And I've had the opportunity now to kind of really look back as things are nearing the tail end of my career and just like, wow, I've been on the journey. I've done some incredible things. And I think sometimes I just miss like the moments in the locker room. Like I'm number 11. I got to share a locker besides Christine Sinclair. Like I just remember some of our chats and he's like, yeah, gold feels good, huh? Like, it's just, it's wild to see the journey and the progress and of where we were as a team. 2011 was my first World Cup. We got the wooden spoon dead last in that tournament. And then go to Tokyo and win gold. It's just to be on that ride and see the evolution of this team and to be a part of the highs and lows of what has been Canada soccer has been one of my greatest, like I've said, treasures and joys of my career. And I've been so blessed.
What's it mean to put that jersey on for the last time right here where it all started in Winnipeg?
Yeah, even just the training gear, I was like, okay, back in the red, let's go. No, I'm honored to have this opportunity. I think a lot of players don't get to write their own script, and I think it's so special that Casey Stoney has given me the opportunity to do so. They worked hard to get a game in Winnipeg, my hometown that I love so much, and so I'm definitely going to soak in all the minutes. It's really just like a celebration of all that I've done, this team, the years that I've committed to it, the joy that I've had with this team on and off the field, and get a couple more destroyer tackles in there for the crowd and just soak it all in.
Let's welcome in longtime former Winnipeg Jet captain Blake Wheeler to the program, fresh off his retirement announcement. Blake, it's great to have you back on the air in the Peg on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
First things first, I guess, congratulations on the retirement. The announcement came out a little while ago after not playing. Tell us about the decision and finally saying, yeah, that is my NHL career is in the rear view.
Yeah, I've known for a long time. I think, after my last year in New York, I knew it was my time. My kids are getting older and wanting to spend more time with them and just feeling like I'd kind of given everything I had to the game. And, it was just my time to step away. At the time, it didn't feel like a pressing or urgent need, to announce anything. And then, just sort of organically, I guess it kind of came out doing an interview such as this. And, but I'm happy to have it out there and be moving on. I'm thrilled about the next phase of life.
What was last year like for you? I mean, was there still a thought of potentially playing if an opportunity came out, or was it just a matter of starting the process of moving on from pretty much everything that you'd known as a professional for all those years?
No, like I said, once I got hurt, I kind of had it like mentally in my head that, maybe there was someone was telling me that it was time to move on. I'd been so lucky in my career, to not deal with many injuries. And then when that happened, I just kind of knew that it was maybe going to be my last year anyway. And then, I was lucky enough to come back and, we made it super deep and ultimately lost to Florida. There was maybe 24 hours after Florida won the cup the first time, after my last year that I was like, maybe go back into it. And that came and went pretty fast. So, no, the last year has been great. A lot of time with my family, a lot of time, coaching all three of my kids' hockey teams, all the things that I've wanted to do, I've been able to do the last year. So it was a really great year.
The last year with the Rangers, of course, was marred by that really ugly leg injury. And I mean, you had been basically an Iron Man for the Winnipeg Jets throughout your career. What was that like? I mean, the last year with a new team and then having to go through something that you really hadn't done before.
I think what was a bummer about it was it was probably, the last 2 or 3 weeks there with the Rangers, I was starting to feel like myself again. I think just with all the new changes, being on a new team, feeling a little bit out of sorts, it's tough to be with a team for as long as I was in Winnipeg. And you just have so much, things that you're comfortable with. Just, you don't really have to think about those things. Then you go to a new organization, new situation, new roles. And, I kind of felt like a fish out of water for a long time. So I was starting to feel like myself again. My game was starting to feel good. And then, the injury happens, which was, that was a bummer because, like I said, we had a really good team, won the President's Trophy. I thought we were going to have a really good chance to maybe, go on a deep run. And, it was just bad timing.
Blake Wheeler's with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, fresh off the official retirement announcement. When you look back at your NHL career, the majority of it is going to be right here in Winnipeg. How now you're removed from the end, and we're thinking back to the career overall. How will you look back on your time here with Winnipeg, with the Jets, and also as a very important member of this community?
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud. I mean, Sam and I feel so lucky that we were able to be in one place for as long as we were, and we're so proud that it was in Winnipeg. We had no idea what to expect when we came up for the first time. Neither of us had ever been to Winnipeg. And, just to be a part of that community, the amount of passion they have for their team, the amount of incredible friendships we've made over the years in Winnipeg, to be, part of the group that kind of helped lay the foundation of what the Winnipeg Jets are today. All those things, we are so proud of everything that we were able to be a part of in that community, and still get to come back and see all of our, best friends in the world that are Winnipeggers. We watch that team with a ton of pride now. All the great friends I have that are still a part of the Jets, whether it's the organization or players on the team. Ultimately the one thing is we wish we could have, brought a cup to Winnipeg. I mean, that was like what got me out of bed every single day for 12 years. And, it's too bad we weren't able to do that. But, like I said, being a part of the group that laid the foundation to hopefully a Stanley Cup comes back to Winnipeg in the very near future.
It's so crazy to think about this. There's a 15-year patch on the Jet jersey this year, and that's how long it's been since the team came back in 2011. But let's rewind. I mean, you're still a young player, just established, about 3 years in as a full-time NHLer, and then the Atlanta Thrashers moved to Winnipeg. I mean, what do you remember about that summer before you and your teammates came here to start this new chapter with the Jets?
Yeah, personally, it was quite a whirlwind. I had just been traded from Boston to Atlanta, so I was kind of going through my first, a big move in my career. So that was, sort of just like an uprooting in and of itself. And then, we go from Atlanta to Winnipeg, and same kind of thing. It's, the whole team's moving together. But, Sam and I were it was a whirlwind, just getting our, setting, bearings in two new places kind of within a few months of each other. But like I said, from the moment we stepped foot in Winnipeg, the excitement the community had for having a team back, I think it just gave not only myself, but our entire team such a boost of excitement that I think maybe towards the end of the time in Atlanta was lacking a little bit. Just there wasn't much buzz around the team. The team hadn't, really had much success over the years. So, when we came to Winnipeg, we felt like kings of a town that just, was so thrilled to have a team back.
It was, there was a honeymoon, but, the team did progress quite a bit over those first few years from a team that, wasn't a playoff team to making it in for the first time in that series against the Anaheim Ducks. I always love talking to guys that have played here in the market about their first experience with playoff hockey here in Winnipeg. I know the series was incredibly tight. It wasn't long, but what do you remember about skating out in front of the whiteout for the first time as a member of the Jets? And we really felt like the NHL was back here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. I just remember when I skated out, our building just looked so different. I mean, I had played a lot of games in that building up until that first game, and then skating out there, everything looked different. All the people in white, it was full for warmups, and I felt like my feet didn't touch the ground, the entire game probably. It just was one of those experiences where you felt almost out of body. It's too bad we ended up losing that game in overtime. And to your point, I think statistically, I think we kind of won the series. It was we led for most of that series. We just we hadn't quite learned how to win the big games yet. But it was a great taste, and I think for our group, it was like real motivation for us to try to take another step. As an organization, hadn't won a playoff game yet, and to get into the playoffs and get swept, it lit a fire under our group for sure.
Hey, as one of the leaders, I mean, right around that time previous to it, of course, there was a coaching change and Paul Maurice came in. What do you remember about Paul coming in, and how did that change the trajectory of you and the group?
Paul walked in our locker room the first time and took his glasses off. The gentleman, my name is Paul Maurice, and I'll be your head coach. And I mean, you could have heard a pin drop in that room. He just has such a presence about him. I mean, you guys have seen Paul enough, whether it be, in front of you in the media in Winnipeg and even now in Florida, just the way he commands a room. There's no mistakes with Paul Maurice. Everything is very calculated. He's incredibly bright. From a player standpoint, every day had a purpose. He was well thought out. There was no wasted days. If you got a day off, there was a reason behind it. So we just felt incredibly prepared. I think that was a big shift for our team was just how prepared we were every single day. And Paul just has a way of getting the most out of his players. The motivation for every game. I mean, game 57, in January, February can feel very monotonous in the course of a season, but he finds a way to make it incredibly meaningful and light that fire under the team every single day.
I'm interested to know about becoming captain. How did it happen? And as a player that was already a very important player and a leader on the team, how does that change your relationship with the head coach when you get the C put on your chest, especially in a market like Winnipeg where the hockey is so important?
Yeah, I think my leadership had progressed, over the years, and I was very fortunate to learn a lot from Andrew Ladd. I mean, Ladder, he and I lead in different ways, and I learned a lot from him. I was lucky to, be one of the alternates while he was the captain, and I just soaked in how he led. And I was maybe a little bit more vocal than Ladder, definitely much more emotional at times. But I just felt very fortunate to have learned from him, and I learned from Zdeno Chara when I was in Boston, amongst others in that dressing room in Boston. And, even in Winnipeg, we had guys that I was able to learn from, in those first few years. So, I think the timing was right. And when Ladder moved on, I'd progressed and was ready for that responsibility. And, between Chevy, Chip and Paul, they felt comfortable with me. And I obviously was incredibly honored to wear the C in Winnipeg. So, my relationship with Paul has always been incredibly close. We spoke all the time. He wanted to get a pulse on the room, just kind of what the guys need. And I think I was kind of the middleman between, the players, the coach, just trying to communicate where the guys were at, where the energy was. And I think that was incredibly important to our success over the years was our relationship because, when times are bad, we were able to hash it out and regroup and get the most out of the group every single day.
I mean, I know that it was pretty clear that you wore the C every day with a lot of pride, but what was the job of being captain like? How did it change, and was it challenging at times?
Yeah, I would say there's a honeymoon phase where everyone loves you and you can't do any wrong. And I think my play, was strong, so I was able to back it up. So it was. For a long time, it was a lot of fun. It was great. I mean, especially those years where we were super good and contending. It was a blast. And even the years where, it started getting more challenging in the end. Like it was a war with a ton of pride. I would say that, probably after that series we lost to St. Louis, things started changing. The personnel in our room changed, in a big way, and I just don't think the expectation changed with that. So that's where it started to get challenging, where, the expectation was to contend and maybe, from a personnel standpoint, we weren't in a place to contend anymore. So at that stage of my career, re-signing in Winnipeg, the reason was to my point at the beginning of this conversation was, the vision of bringing a Stanley Cup to Winnipeg. And, the gap there, I think, was bigger than maybe we all thought. And that's where it started getting challenging when, we weren't maybe aligned on what the expectation was anymore. And, that was tough. That was tough towards the end of my career to realize that maybe, our window closed a little bit quicker than we had hoped it would.
Well, it was certainly wide open in 17-18, and the team made it all the way to the conference finals. I mean, I know I've heard you speak before saying there really was a belief, certainly I think in the city, but also in the room, that you guys were the best team in the National Hockey League. I mean, what do you remember? Because there were so many highs of that playoff run, but obviously it ended prematurely as to what the goal was.
I mean, that was a year. I think it was a coming out party for our organization in a lot of different ways, and I think what I remember from it was there was always kind of this like cautious optimism all year of, are we as good as we maybe think we were? I think from the media standpoint too, it was like, are you guys that good? I remember going into that playoff series against Minnesota and, with a young core, young group, like, can you guys go all the way? We had never won a playoff game as an organization going into that Minnesota series. So I remember winning that first game and just the huge relief from our group that we didn't have to answer that question anymore. So along the way, it was just checking a lot of boxes of like, we were kind of proving it to ourselves and to everyone every single day with our goaltending, with our D-core, and then supplemented with our forward group. Like, I think with every single player in that room, with like every bone in our body, we believed that we were going to win it that year. So it was pretty demoralizing the way it ended against Vegas because, get off to a great start in that first game at home. And even throughout the rest of the series, maybe minus, game 5, even game 2 and game 5 were close games, but the games in Vegas were the ones that got away because, we felt like we controlled a lot of those games and just, Marc-Andre Fleury, did what he does.
Blake, I mean, the team returned next season with, still, I mean, a stacked roster, very high expectations in the 2019 season. And in and around New Year's, I mean, you were right there at the top of the standings. And then the second half went poorly and the team was bounced in the first round in a very tight series against St. Louis. Where did things sort of fall off the rails? And when you look back at that season, I mean, where did things go wrong? Because it really seemed like the window was very much open again that season with a little more experience, but it just didn't work.
Buff got hurt pretty bad that year, and I think that gets lost in the shuffle a bit, how important he was to our team and to our success. And, when he got hurt, Troop stepped in and did a phenomenal job, both on the power play, kind of taking over that number one role, but still, like, Buff's Buff. And when he was on the ice, he just commanded such a different level of respect and presence from our team. So I think that gets lost in the shuffle a bit. Like, when we lost him, we definitely slid a little bit. We weren't quite the same team. And then when he came back, I don't think he was 100%, so that hurt us. That is a clear thing that you can point to in that season of, I think, when things started to shift a little bit. And I think through that slide, I think our morale was maybe damaged a little bit too. We regrouped pretty honorably in that St. Louis series, being down 0-2, tying it up. And I mean, we were up, it was either 2-0 or 3-0 at home in game 5. And if we win that game, you just never know what could happen, right? So there's all these little moments throughout playoff series or even through seasons where, coulda, woulda, shoulda, you don't know how it's going to end up. But that, to me, when you talk about that 2019 second half, that was a pretty clear blow to our team when we lost Buff.
I mean, listen, I could probably ask you a million things about Buff and talk for 2 hours, but I mean, a player, a teammate, when people ask you, I mean, just off air, hey, what was it like playing with Dustin Byfuglien? I mean, where do you even start?
The headline I would put on that is like, in Buff's prime, I would have traded him for anyone in the entire league. And I say that with complete confidence because there was nobody like him. You don't really realize what you have in a player until they're gone. And as a right winger, when I'm on the ice with Buff, yeah, he gave me headaches sometimes. I played a lot of right defense when he was up, leading the rush. And he was a bit of a wild card. And I gave him a hard time when we played together. I called him a midfielder. He didn't really play forward or defense. He was kind of somewhere in the middle all the time. But yeah, just how his hockey sense, his vision, how easily he broke the puck out, the little plays that he makes that people don't really see. I mean, people see the big hits and the physicality and some of those highlight moments from Buff, but his hockey sense was a 10 out of 10. And he just made everyone's life, for the most part, so much easier. So we missed him a ton when he retired.
I mean, and obviously that's one of those moments that no one really saw coming. I mean, you're the captain of this team. You've still got a real good squad. Expectations and hopes are high, and he's done the first day of training camp. I mean, what do you remember about that, and how much of a shock to the system was that, not just for the captain but for everybody in the room?
Yeah, it was demoralizing because, like I said, you just can't replace Buff. And I think his injury was worse than he let on. And I don't think he came back 100%. And I don't want to speak for Buff, but it certainly hurt. When you lose a player of that caliber and you're not really able to replace him, I mean, that leaves a big void in your decor. And keep in mind from 2019 until that next season, with Buff retiring, we lost Troops, we lost Tyler Myers, we lost Toby Enstrom, we lost Ben Sherratt. That's 5 of contending decor. That makes it really tough. So that's kind of what I talk about when you turn the page on a group that was contending for a Stanley Cup for a couple of years. It made it really tough.
Blake, one of the things that always comes up when we talk about you and your career here in Winnipeg is just the Iron Man nature, the fact that you were in every night. I don't know how many times on this show when we've been talking about you, I've gone back to that game late in the season in Dallas. I want to say it's 2014. Happened to be there where you got ran into the side of the boards when the door was open. I mean, it looked like an incredibly serious injury. The team's playoff hopes were technically alive, and we're worried about the offseason if you're going to be able to play next year, and then you roll out about 3 minutes later with the season on the line and finish that up. I actually personally thought, and I remember saying on the air the next day, I think we just saw without a doubt who the next captain of the Winnipeg Jets was. Do you remember that incident? How was it like to get back on there? Why did you do it? And just maybe a little thought about playing through as much as you did to be able to put up 82 games over and over again.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that, and I think it's just if you're able to play, you play. This league is so competitive, and I how I started in Boston, and then I was given this opportunity in Atlanta and Winnipeg, and you just don't want to ever miss time, because you miss time, players are too good, and you lose your spot or whatever it might be. So I guess I just got into this mindset that, if you're able to play, you play. And it became really, really black and white. Like, when I got injured my last year in New York, like I couldn't play, right? You stand up and your leg's gone. That means you can't play. Anything short of scenarios like that, it's you try to find a way. And, that incident in particular, we went to the back room and got an x-ray and it looked good. And so I just, let's go. Like, what are we waiting for? And I think that was just the mindset. I just wanted to be out there. I had a incredibly horrible case of FOMO. I didn't want to miss out on anything with the guys. And above all else, I just loved the game. And I loved being out there with my teammates. So anything short of like a no-brainer, you can't play, I was going to try to give it my best.
Well, the other one that I got to ask you about is a rather infamous injury against the Nashville Predators. We'll call it a mid-body injury. How the hell did you finish that game?
That was the most pain I've ever been in. I went back into the dressing room and I was on all fours for probably 10 to 15 minutes, kind of in between like throwing up and passing out. And I just didn't, you're just kind of waiting for it to go away. And finally it did. Like it kind of started feeling better, and it was in between the second and third. Without getting too graphic, I had to pass a couple of tests to make sure there wasn't anything, any blood in areas there shouldn't be. And after that, it was like, okay, everything looks good. I mean, I would say the advice I was given was maybe don't go back out there. But to my point, FOMO kicks in, and I'm like, I'm feeling okay. Like let's go for it. And so I was ready to go to Vancouver with the team the next day, and luckily enough, Rob Millette was like, let's get an ultrasound done just to make sure there's nothing wrong. And sure enough, there was. So yeah, I mean, JMO shoots that puck hard, I got to tell you. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but you play long enough and things are going to catch you in places you don't want it to. And like I said, luckily enough, the Jets medical staff is first class and they take great care of you. And they were looking out for me there.
Longtime Jet captain Blake Wheeler with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Blake, the one year that you didn't have to see at the end was that final season. Obviously very different than your other years in Winnipeg. How challenging was that for you personally? And was the end somewhat amicable between you and the team? Was it the right time when you look back?
Yeah, without disclosing too much, I just have too much respect for Chevy and Chip to get into everything that had happened. But yeah, it was really hard, obviously, to lose the captaincy and the way I did. I would say that there's layers to that situation where I take ownership over what had happened. I think if I'm being completely transparent, I felt like it was probably time for me to move on, the year before that. I'd been there a long time. I felt like I had been a driver for that group and that organization for a long time. And I just felt it slipping. I felt, I wasn't loving how I was showing up anymore. I was, my leadership just wasn't where I wanted it to be anymore. So I felt like it was probably a year before that was time. And, the following year, actually, I'm incredibly grateful for that year that I was there. I felt like I was able to, I learned a lot, I grew a lot, and was able to have like an incredible year with the organization, with my teammates, a year that I'm incredibly proud of. Of all the years in Winnipeg, it's one of the years I'm most proud of, just for, how I was able to show up again and be, the leader I wanted to be again, even without the captaincy. So I don't blame anyone for that situation. I take ownership for all of it and how it went down. I think if there was anything I could go back and upgrade, it maybe be some communication over the kind of the end of my time in Winnipeg and just getting on the same page. But how things ultimately ended between me and the Jets, completely amicable, handled first class, I felt, by both sides, and to the point where I have a great relationship with everyone involved with the Winnipeg Jets, and like I said, that's why I'm so happy that I did have that last year, because when I ended up leaving, it was on great terms.
Blake Wheeler's with us, longtime captain, franchise leader in games played, assists, points, although your pal Mark Scheifele's coming up on that one pretty soon. Blake, now that you've officially retired, what's next for Blake Wheeler?
There's a lot of coaching youth hockey involved. I would just put a blanket over coaching. Towards the end of my time in Winnipeg as well, maybe the last 3 years there, I worked with a coach myself, meant to help, in these areas that I talked about, my leadership, how I wanted to show up every day. Andrew Ladd actually is the one who introduced me to my coach named Dan Leflar. And, he works at a firm called Novus Global. And, through that time, my eyes started to be opened of how I was relating to be a pro athlete, kind of I don't want to call it struggles, but just sort of the grind of being a pro athlete, how you hear pro athletes talk about the day in, day out of it. And I just thought there might be a real opportunity for other athletes. And that's what I've started doing myself. So Andrew Ladd is, he's the lead of Novus Global Sports, and I'm one of his teammates now again. And, that's kind of our mission is helping pro athletes and, both their, their careers and helping them with their performance, but also with their leadership, with their, being parents, being dads, being husbands, all the above. Just, it was transformational for my life and my career. And that was sort of like my vision, was how can I help give this away to athletes as well.
On behalf of everyone here at Winnipeg Sports Talk and to the fans in the chat, congratulations on an incredible career, especially for the amazing years here in Winnipeg. All the best to Team Wheeler moving forward, and we'll look forward to seeing you back here in the Peg at some point soon. Thanks so much for the time, Blake.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, this is going to be fun. We have had our next guest on a number of times talking about multiple Scotties championships, national championships, world championships, Olympic gold medals. But this is the first time we've ever brought her on, introducing her as a #1 best-selling author. Jennifer Jones with the new book Rockstar joins us now on WST. Jen, what's going on?
Got a book out. Not much.
Congratulations. I know the launch was last week, and obviously the reception's been amazing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's blown me away, to be honest. It's just been way more than I could have ever imagined. The book launch at McNally Robinson was jammed full of people. It warmed my heart. Like it was crazy. I couldn't believe it. And then it's selling really well. So it's been fun, but the whole process has been great. It allowed me to reflect on my curling career and really just kind of remember all the great times.
Listen, people have been in Manitoba in particular have been following your curling career from getting started to, the greatest heights in the sport. There's so many stories in there, but how did it come to be that you even thought about writing a book, and what was the process like?
We talked about it for so long. Like we said, we have to write a book, or there needs to be a book, or Jen, you got to write a book. And so when I retired, it was on the top of my mind. I thought, I should do this I should write a book before I forget all the stories. I'm not getting any younger, so I have to try to remember all these things. And then I was everything aligned, and the publisher was interested in having me write the book. And so I wrote it quite quickly. So it's a long process. You write the book, and then it kind of goes through all the publishing thing. Like I finished writing the book a few months ago, and then all of a sudden now it's in stores. So it's pretty exciting.
We've spent so much time talking about the incredible heights that you've achieved for obvious reasons, but I imagine the book gets into some of the biggest challenges you had over the course of your career. I mean, it's not all winning and gold medals. And listen, especially with curling, for someone like yourself that's a wife and a mother, that balance between, being the best in the world at something and also trying to be the best for the people that need you every day, I'm sure was one of the bigger ones that you had throughout the career.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's so many challenges. So I talk about that, and just more like how I grew as a person and how you overcome that. And then you have kids and you add all of that in there, and you want to try to be this good role model for your kids, but for others that are watching, it was definitely an evolution for me. And you realize, some things are just, you take so much pride in, and you realize the impact that you can make. And so I talk a lot about that and how I evolved as a person.
I'm always fascinated, here being a guy that follows curling, but not really an active player, that year after year, we kind of joke about the curling off season as July 1st in the National Hockey League with free agency and players changing teams. It seems like it's a little different now, but I'll go back a little bit. I mean, how would you describe the bond between your teammates? And how difficult it is for a leader and, the skip to make changes after you've done so many things on the ice with women, but also you create this bond off the ice that's probably far different than most teammates in everyday sports.
Yeah, you really are family. You become really close with them. They're part of your life every day. And the way curling is that, it is the skip that generally is kind of front and center, and especially when team changes are happening. And that was some of the most difficult times in my life, for sure. It wasn't, it's not fun. It's not easy. It's challenging. It's in the public eye. But it's kind of part of your role. And sometimes it has to be done. But you don't look forward to it, for sure. And you look back, and maybe some things you do a little bit different and maybe not, but I think that it's all a part of the process and where we are today.
Just from a skip perspective, you have these close relationships, but you're also, bottom line is to try to be the best team that you can be. When you do make a change like that, how long is it coming? Or is it one of those things like, when you realize you have to make a change that, you do it immediately? Or is it all basically done around these 4-year windows that you realize that you're sort of locked in with these people with one ultimate goal, and when that doesn't happen, it's time to change course?
Yeah, I think years gone by, it was just kind of whenever. And then all of a sudden the Olympics came and you're always in this quadrennial. So you kind of commit as a team for 4 years, but you'll reevaluate year after year if it's not working out and you might have to make some changes. But for the most part, 15 years ago was after a 4-year cycle. That's when you'd start fresh and you'd figure out what you need to do next. But now you're seeing team changes in the middle of the season, like at the end of the season. It's just becoming a lot more, teams are trying to be their very best. It's so competitive. One little change can make a massive difference. And so you're seeing a lot more changes, especially over the last 3 or 4 years.
Jen, as someone that grew up here in Winnipeg and has represented the province throughout her career, it's not lost upon me at how blessed we are if you're a curling fan with the incredible talent coming out of Manitoba. And I'm sure you probably don't talk about this a lot on some of the other interviews, but tell us about, being a young curler here in Manitoba and then getting to a world-class level, but the level of competition just at your own rink in your own city and how that made you the player that you were considering what was awaiting you. I mean, it seemed like if you can win in Manitoba, you can literally win anywhere.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, right? Like when we lived in Manitoba, it was really hard to get to a Scotties. Like winning the provincials was so challenging, and so many great Manitobans never made a Scotties or never made a Brier, like great Manitoba curlers, because it was just so tough. But when you got there, because you played against the best and it made you be better, you were ready to win. And I think that's a great problem. I'd rather be ready to win and you're training with the best and you're playing against the best daily. So you're ready to be in that situation. And we're very fortunate in our province to have great depth that our athletes are ready. And you see so many great talents. Like we've had a longevity of so long of producing some of the best curlers in the world. When we're following, the Scotties, and obviously it's a little different now because, you've got Team Canada, now there's wild cards, which obviously is great for, some of the teams that, I can't imagine what it would be like to be a young women's team getting into the Scotties in the last 10 years, knowing that, oh, Jen's here and Carrie's here. It's pretty daunting. So it has sort of opened it up and we're seeing them more. But also, with you from both in Manitoba and on a national level, had legendary rivalries. When you think back to your biggest rivals, who, what are the names or the teams that, immediately come to mind? Well, Kelly Scott would come to mind only because the media made it out to be such a rivalry. And so it just felt like it was a rivalry. They talked about it all the time. I was asked in every media scrum about the rivalry. So that would stand out to me probably the most. And that was really in the beginning when we were starting, like kind of our run. They were winning or we were winning. And so it just felt like it was one of the two. And then obviously in this kind of era, you look at Carrie Anderson and Rachel Holman and just some really great teams that we were playing against all the time. So when I think rivalry, I always think Kelly Scott. And I do think the media has made that in my mind, but then you also look at the Alina Petzes and the Savannah Tiranzonis, or you have Canada as a rivalry with Sweden. And that's who we got to play in the Olympic gold medal game. And it just seemed perfect because it felt like that was Canada's biggest rivalry and we got to do it on the biggest stage.
You mentioned that Carrie Anderson's rink, who's, obviously had incredible success of their own. It's always really cool when, you guys are playing, especially in big matchups, knowing that this is an all Manitoba matchup. You guys have had some epic battles over the years. What's your relationship like with Kelly and Carrie, I should say, and off the ice? When you have these two great teams that know that there's only one spot you're fighting for it, are you guys really friendly off the ice, or is there an element of, hey, this is our opponents, and hey, how's it going? And it's not too chatty.
I know people want me to say, oh, we don't talk and we hate each other off the ice, but it's just not the way it is. Carrie and I are actually good friends. I have her text, we'll text once in a while. So it's not as dramatic as it seems when you see on TV. And for me, it's always just been a mutual respect. I just have so much respect for the people that we play against, and she's one of the best to ever play. So it was always an honor to share the ice with her, and she's a great person. She's super fun, funny. So why wouldn't you want to hang out with her? She's great.
No, listen, we're blessed with so many great ones. Yeah. And listen, you then, in the final chapter, teamed up with kind of a young group of Manitoban girls, very different from your team before. Tell us just about that. Why you decided to play with an entire new generation of curlers, and when you look back, what will stand out about that chapter after everything you did with your longtime teammates?
Yeah, honestly, it was the best way to end my career. I feel very grateful for those girls, and I wasn't sure if I had another 4 years in me after I retired, but I felt like I still wanted to play, and I felt like I could still play at the highest level, and I had all this knowledge and experience that I wanted to share with the next generation. And you look at, everybody's Canadian curling and how it's growing around the world. Well, in order for us to keep up with the world, we have to be at our very best. And I just felt like I had this information that I could share and maybe help who I thought were the next kind of generation of the best Canadian curlers to be their very best. And we were able to win a slam, and we won some events. We were ranked high. We came very close to winning a Scotties. And so for me, those couple of years, I got to kind of fall in love with curling all over again. Not that I fell out of love with it, but I got to remember when I was young and see curling through their eyes, see their first Scotties final. And it just brought me back to so many great moments in my career. So I think it was we both benefited from it.
Jennifer Jones is with us. The book is called Rockstar. It is a #1 national bestseller, available everywhere right now. I'm just thinking about the final team that you played with Mackenzie and the younger players, and it got me thinking about now, post playing career. I've seen on your social media, you're a mom. Your daughter's playing. What's it like being a curling mom right now?
Oh, it's the best. She loves it. One of my daughters loves it, and I don't care what they do. I just love being a mom. Like I love it. And I love cheering for them and supporting them. And I said, when I retired, I want to embarrass them. I want to be cheering with my pom-poms front and center, and kind of like what my parents did for me, because it makes you feel so loved and supported and special. And those are the memories you remember from your childhood. So I love it. I think Isabella will play for a long time. She seems to really enjoy it, and she understands the game. And so I can't wait to help her try to be her very best.
Does everyone expect her to be a complete shark just because of who her mom happens to be?
Yeah, like I felt bad because I don't want her to feel the pressure. It's hard to, you go into the St. Mattel Curling Club and there's like all these banners, but it's also good. She's got to be around curling and learn curling, so she understands curling better than anyone I've ever seen at her age, and so that's kind of a bonus. And Brent and I really want to help her team. So it's good. Like and she doesn't feel the pressure. She loves that we want to help and that we want to support her. And she doesn't feel like there's any expectations, which is great.
Jennifer, I have to ask you about what's next. And of course there's mixed with your husband, Brent, which is, really cool to have that section of the sport growing and now being an Olympic sport. But listen, curling fans can't get enough of Jen Jones, and now they're going to be seeing her more. I was interested to note from the book that the transition, you seem effortless when you're dealing with the media. I mean, you seem pretty laid back and, pretty chill and a natural, frankly. But it wasn't always, and doesn't seem maybe as easy as it is. Fill us in on the struggles that you had with the media in the spotlight earlier, and how you've handled that now going in to be one of the faces of the Sportsnet curling coverage.
I know, it's kind of crazy, actually. I remember when I went to cover the Vancouver Olympics, I sat on the media bench, and it was Bob Weeks actually said to me, "Welcome to the dark side." And I was like, it made me laugh. And it was a struggle. I'm a very private person, and then all of a sudden things can be taken out of context, or you're portrayed in a certain way, and we're all sensitive beings, or most of us are, and so it's hard to not let it hurt your heart a little bit. But no, and now I'm in the Sportsnet booth, and I love it. And that's what curling has given to me, is it's allowed me to have more confidence. It's given me a lot more belief in myself, and I'm also okay if people disagree with me. And I don't know if I would have said that years ago. Like, I just never liked conflict. I didn't want to do anything to offend anybody. So I'm really enjoying being in the Sportsnet booth. I love calling curling. It allows me to be involved in the game. And I'm on national TV. Who would have thought?
Well, I'll tell you what, now that you are on the dark side, I love it, because we can hit you up and talk a little curling maybe during the season at some point. Jen, thanks so much for having us. The book, folks, is Rockstar. It was just released last week, #1 national bestseller. Of course, the launch was at McNally. You can pick it up there or anywhere in around town where you get books. Jen, congratulations on another amazing performance from all accounts. You've always got another shot in the bag, if you were. We can't wait to see you on the tube this year, and hopefully we can talk to you around some of the bigger events on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. Congratulations and all the best with the book.
You got it. And I always say never a dull moment, and happy to come on anytime. So thanks for having me.
All right, this is going to be fun. You know, considering the amount over the years of professional athletes and wrestlers that we've had on the program, I still don't think anyone has taken more hits than our next guest. He is the legendary stuntman, comedian, member of the Jackass crew, and he's coming to town for the Crash and Burn Tour September 19th at the Burt. What a pleasure to welcome in the legendary Steve O to WST. Steve, what's happening?
Well, I'm hanging tough, man. I guess it's not a day off. I got a show tonight in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm spending the day at the Woodward Action Sports Compound.
Love it. So out in Utah right now, continuing this tour, and obviously action sports, something that you've been connected with for well over 2.5 to 25 years, basically, since it all got going. Listen,
it's actually been at this point, since I made my first video, I learned how to edit to make my first skateboard video over 35 years ago now.
And anyone that is familiar with any of the videos knows that I'm not kidding when I say I don't think there's anyone on planet Earth maybe that has put themselves through more self-inflicted abuse than you. How are you alive right now and even able to do this interview and this upcoming tour?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. And I've had people ask me, when I wake up in the morning getting out of bed, am I just in so much pain? Do I have persistent injuries? And I'm actually surprisingly in good shape. I mean, my neck has what's called degenerative disc disease. It's not at a point that's debilitating or painful. I've got a condition in my esophagus called Barrett's esophagus, which is something you got to keep an eye on because it tends to turn into throat cancer or esophageal cancer. Other than those two things, and a lot of fake teeth and terrible tattoos, I'm really in pretty great shape, and I attribute that to staying active. I think that in the long run, what really gets more people is inactivity rather than activity. And I move my body quite a bit, so I think that's been more of a saving grace than a hindrance.
You were also living a sober lifestyle now, as opposed to the exact opposite of that earlier on. How did you do that? How difficult was it, and how different is your life now? Because as anyone that was familiar with the content before, there was pretty much nothing off limits back in the day.
Oh, there's nothing off limits now either. It's just a question of not being intoxicated. How difficult? What was difficult was continuing the way that I was going. I just reached an end. I hit a wall, and I was fortunate to have my my Jackass buddies step in and stage an intervention, which somehow, by the grace of God, worked. And I've been clean and sober ever since for the last 17 years.
I know I want to get Remis in here in a sec to talk to you more about some of the work that you guys have done. But you mentioned that Jackass crew, and I mean, a legendary bunch of dudes doing some of the craziest stuff that's ever been done. How did that change your life? I mean, what do you think about the legacy of all of that and where it's led you to right now?
I think that what we did with Jackass was culturally significant. the media has changed so much since we started. Like I said, 35 years ago, I made my first video, and at that time, the video camera was simply not a household item. Even when Jackass started 25 years ago, the video camera was not a household item. Um, there was there wasn't video footage playing on the internet. They didn't have YouTube. For me to get noticed, I had to duplicate video cassette tapes and walk to the post office to mail them. There just wasn't that much noise to rise up against, or to rise above. Yeah, everything's changed so much in that time. It's hard to it's hard to imagine what my life would have been like without Jackass. I was sometimes wonder if I was born 20 years later and everybody had a video camera in their pocket when I was trying to first get noticed. Would I have been able to, to make it? And I genuinely believe that I'm such a persistent son of a bitch that I would have found a way to get noticed. But it's hard to imagine that I would have been as lucky as I was being born when I was.
It's a great question because in the nature of, the way technology has changed everything, and people going viral, you guys basically you went viral first. You went viral via television. I mean, through MTV. And I mean, that level of the viral nature of that wasn't just you were everywhere for one day. It kept going for a long time and kept to grow because there was no one else doing what you were doing.
Right. And at the time, there was a substantial barrier to entry for for video production, particularly television and film. At the time you had the real world, the reality television was in its infancy, but even then it was, like real production companies doing it. There just wasn't a way to make a career. There wasn't a precedent for making a career with the home video camera at the time. And what's crazy is that I was dropping out of college in 1993, and I proclaimed that I was going to make a career as a crazy stuntman with my home video camera at a time when there was no precedent for that. And I just didn't have a plan B.
Hey, I want to bring Remis in here. We were kind of chuckling before we had you on, talking about, the sports nature. I mean, wrestling stuff and then hockey stuff. Remo, why don't you come in and kind of tee up some of the stuff that some of our listeners, if they'd missed it, would be interested in getting to?
Yeah, Steve-O, it's been an incredible career that you've had. I remember watching back in the early 2000s when Jackass came out. I mean, what impresses you the most about your own longevity here, over, as you mentioned, editing video for 35 years.
It's such a funny way to phrase the question. What impresses you most about you? I mean, that's the kind of question that I would just eat up. What I would attribute the longevity of the Jackass franchise to is sporadic releases. That there was just 4 movies. The first movie came out in 2002, and there were 4 years of hiatus in between the first 3 movies, and then there was a full 10 years of hiatus between the third and fourth. And so that's what allowed it to be stretched out the way that it was. And I just go back to me being persistent in between every movie, even if I was going largely in the wrong direction, and while in trouble with substances, I was always hustling, man. I was hustling in the wrong direction for a number of years, and then I got clean and sober and figured out how to hustle in the right direction. But, I've been very active on my own, and, everything that I've done throughout, everything that worked, I've built on it and figured out how to do it better.
Thanks for hanging out amongst the compilation of our best of the past year or so for a little bit of a WST Christmas special. In the meantime, enjoy all the sporting action over the course of the holidays, the next few days. Of course, Jets, Minnesota on Saturday. We'll have WST Sunday Live with Connor and Liz on Sunday morning, and we will be back with our next edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk on Monday as the Oilers come to town to take on the Winnipeg Jets. From our Winnipeg Sports Talk family to yours, happy holidays. Thanks for the support, and we'll see you soon right here on WST.